So like I said, I'm going to model a shark in this video, and I'm going to start with, I believe he started with a sphere. Correct me if I'm wrong, but I'm going to rotate this 90 degrees. And I'm not going to model the whole shark since you've already done that, but I'm just going to mostly focus on the details that that were included. Maybe I'll go to the front view. Actually, side view is better. And I'm going to select this vertex, and I'm going to use soft select. Yeah, maybe 2.5 is pretty good. And I'm going to stretch those and then maybe scale them. I don't know, something like that. So let's just say the eye is, I mean, and ideally I would be using a reference image. In fact, the head is generally flatter. So I'll flatten out the head and maybe widen it so it feels a little bit more like a shark. And again, this is not using a reference image, but if I had a reference image, I'm just going to pretend that the eye is between these two edge loops. And I might even add another edge loop just to make sure that I get, I don't get, so their eyes are fairly round. They don't have like a long almond shaped eye. I'll just move this forward. Actually, I'll just take both of these and I'll scale them closer together. And let's say I'm going to use this square right here for the eye. And I'm not going to do it to both sides. Actually, I think probably the eye would probably be closer to here. So I'm going to reposition where I was going to make the eye to here. And I'll use this face for my eye. So to get more geometry, you can go to Mesh Tools, Edit Mesh, and then Extrude. And you can see if I just extrude in the axis, it's the axis is normal to the face. So as long as I keep that, it's going to follow the surface. So I'm going to scale it just a little bit first. In fact, let me see if I can. Actually, no, I'm going to undo that because I want to scale it, or I want to pull it before I scale it. All right, so I'm going to reselect that face, and then I'm going to re-extrude it, and I'm going to use that blue z-axis. Yeah, and now I'm going to scale it and maybe push it down a little bit. And that's still not much geometry. You really want a little bit more than that. I'm just creating a little bit of a pocket for the eye. So the challenge really is that you're trying to avoid creating n-gons unnecessarily. So I'm going to add a little bit more detail. I'm going to use the insert, I'm sorry, not insert edge loop. I'm going to use multi-cut. And this will create initially more polygons, but we can resolve them pretty easily. Okay, so you can see that you have, I created 4 triangles there. And then if I click between those two, I've now resolved those. So now we have quads again. So this isn't very shapely, This is very geometric. And if I hit 3, you can see that that helps a little bit. So I smoothed it out, but still I think we can do even better. So what I like to use, the tool I like to use a lot is the soft select tool. I'm sorry, not soft select, sculpt geometry tool. So with my object in surface mode or object mode, because it's green, I'm going to go to surfaces and then sculpt geometry tool. And I'm not doing both sides because I'm just going to delete the other half. I'm going to use this smooth tool. I very often go between smooth and relaxed. And right now my brush is really large. So I'm going to hold down B as in boy and scale it down. And I'm just going to paint around this area. And you can see it's starting to round the shapes a little bit better. And I'll probably let me go back through and make it a little bit larger. Oops, let me deselect this guy. And I'll just scale that up. And what I can do is I can add more geometry for more detail. If I wanted to separate between the eyelid and the eyeball, I can add as many of these. And this is really important because what we're going to do in our modeling of the eye, you need to make concentric rings like this. And essentially using this insert edge loop is a really simple way to do that. Because that's how our muscles work around our eyes. They're basically sphincter muscles. So I'm going to go back to object mode and relax it a little bit more. Let's see. Yeah, surfaces, sculpt geometry. I'm going to use the relax tool instead of the smooth tool this time. And it's just slightly pulling in the outer edges, so it's rounding it a little bit better. And the other thing I can do is take this face and pull it up a little bit, and then maybe take the edge loop around it. Let me take this edge loop around it and pull it down. So there's a little bit of a separation. Maybe I'll push it back a little bit. So let me smooth it out and turn off the X-ray. So you can see you have a fairly decent eye, and you don't have to, like I said, you don't have to add the detail of the eyelid, but certainly you could using the same tools. I mean, I could take this edge around here and pull it up and forward, maybe scale it. And just the more rings you add, the more detail you can create. And for the mouth, so the mouth, you're gonna want, if you wanted to do the mouth, you're going to want to, thinking of the Jaws image, the famous poster for the movie back from the 70s, I think. The mouth follows the shape of the U shape of the head. So let me go to the bottom view for a second. Actually, before I do that, I'm going to go ahead and get rid of the right side. There we go. Now I'm going to go to the bottom view. So to start with, I'm just going to pull some of these edges forward or up, maybe even scale some of these closer together. And I want to, at some point, I'm going to actually need to create more of a separation between them. But for now, I'm just going to kind of shape this the way I feel like it should go to make a better mouth. All right, so I'm going to use my multi-cut tool again, and I'll start here. Oh, let's see, right there. Oh, so it's easier to use a multi-cut tool if you're in rough mode. So I hit 1, and now I can actually see the edges. Let's go to there. In fact, I'm going to go to there instead. Yeah, so you can see that I've created a triangle, a triangle, a triangle, and an n-gon, the 5-sided. And as soon as you create, if you have two adjacent triangles, it's really easy to resolve those. You just take the middle of one and you drag it out to the edge of the other. And I'm going to take this line and delete. And then this, if you have, this is also very easy to resolve because this is missing an edge and this has too many edges. So I'm going to, but I also want to consider resolving it in a way that's going to follow the shape that I'm trying to create, which is this U shape. So I'm going to go to multi-cut. And again, I'm going to take from the middle here and I'm going to drag to this corner. And now I don't have any n-gons and I don't have any triangles. So I'm going to go back to smooth mode or to sculpt geometry and see what happens if I relax these a little bit. In fact, very often what I like to do is if I start to get a diamond shape like this, I find that it's actually better to just resolve this with a target weld. So I'm going to close this out so there's not another face there. So I'm going to go to target weld and I'm going to go to center so it averages between these two. And that's a little bit cleaner to work with. Pushing it up. And that's a good start. You can start to see that it's following more the shape of the U shape of the body, the head especially, but probably need more geometry. So I'm gonna keep adding a little bit more geometry until I get more of the shapes that I'm wanting. In fact, one thing you might consider, let's try this. I'm going to, I like to extrude to get more geometry because it helps control the polygons so that they stay polygons and you don't get so many n-gons. Actually, I'm just going to select the bottom lip and let's say extrude, edit mesh, extrude. And this time I'm not going to follow the surface that's normal to the geometry. I'm going to just pull it forward. And then scale that down. And I'm going to go individually and start to pull some of these in so they more take the shape that I'm looking for. And what's really fascinating, but I don't know if you guys know much about sharks, but their scales on their skin is actually microscopic teeth. So their whole body is covered in teeth. Pretty incredible animals. Let me pull this up a little bit. Maybe I could pull this down. So another thing to be careful about though is because I extruded this face that was on the edge, that created another face that I don't want, because when I mirror that over, you're going to have two faces inside the model. So I would delete that face. And that way, when you mirror it over, it's nice and clean. So if we, now let me move this a little bit further forward, this vertex. Now we smooth that, you can start to see a pretty decent mouth. And again, there's no n-gons. We've eliminated any n-gons or triangles. I could pull this guy up a little bit more, I guess. Maybe in. So let's say you wanted to, so the last thing I'll show on the shark is, let's say you extruded a fin. I'll pull this up. I'm going to pull it pretty high to kind of give us some geometry to play with. And I'm going to delete this face, like I said before, so that we don't have any hidden on the inside. And I'm going to add more geometry. So back to insert edge loop. And maybe one more. Let's see. Let me get back in edge mode. Insert edge loop. I'm sorry, not insert edge loop. Yeah, insert edge loop. There we go. Okay. Anyways, I don't know why it was giving me trouble. Well, it still didn't do it. Well, let's just play with this one for a second. So I'm going to pull this one down and pull this back. And you can already see that I need more geometry to get the nicer shape that I'm really wanting to get. So I'm going to add, oh, in fact, I should probably scale this face smaller. That's going to help. And then I really want to add another edge loop underneath the one I created earlier. Well, if it doesn't let me do that, then the other thing you can do is sometimes when insert edge loop doesn't work, I just go to multi-cut. Oh, you know, it might be because I'm in, yeah. So the other problem is sometimes you have issues, it has issues when you're working in smooth mode instead of rough mode. There we go. That's what I was trying to do. Oh, and I'll add one more up around here. Insert edge loop. There we go. Yeah, sometimes I forget that I'm in smooth mode. And I'll pull these down a little bit. Maybe push this in so it's a little bit sharper. Let me go back to smooth mode. I guess I like to stay in smooth mode because it gives me a much better feel for how I want it to look. I don't generally want my stuff looking really blocky. I guess the difference is if you're 3D modeling, you might have your stuff with higher resolution stuff. You'll keep it faceted. Let me pull this up and then I'll rotate it down or scale it down so it's a little bit straighter. Yeah, that's more what I'm looking for. So let's say that this is the shark fin that I'm happy with. And, you know, it's not, again, I'm not referencing an actual image of a shark. So this isn't the best example. I should really be referencing a shark. But let's just say it's following the model of a shark. I'm going to mirror this over real quickly. So I go to mesh, mirror along the mirror axis, the z-axis, I believe. Nope. Looks like it's the x-axis. Yep. Okay. So if you don't want to, because you could extrude from here, those fins, I know they were pointing kind of at a strange angle, which is the same reason that I was encouraging you all to model your hand along with the grid, you can do this, but if you wanted to make adjustments, it's kind of harder to do it from that angle. So I prefer to take something that's modeled straight, and so I'm going to duplicate my model, Control D, and I'm going to move it over, and then I'm going to go to the front view, and I'm going to take just the shark fin. I'm going to go to face mode, and then I made a marquee around just my faces that I want to extract. Oh, you see, I missed a couple. So I hit F to zoom in, and then I'm going to just shift select the ones that I missed. All right, so then I'm going to go to edit mesh, extract, and you can see it turned it into rough mode, but it also separated the shark from the fin. So I want to, you know what, I'm gonna do that again, because it might be easier for you all if you take the pieces around it too. So I'm gonna undo that. And I'm gonna select the faces around that fin. And say, edit mesh, extract. Okay, now I'll delete that. And I want to position, I'm going to center pivot this, modify center pivot. Oh, what happened? There it is. And I'm going to move it over into an area that's near where I want it to be. So, I mean, that maybe that's the, oh, so if I drag it around this way, it's going to be harder to position. Maybe actually that's not too bad. It's looking like it's finding position pretty well. So if I go to the right view, let's see where that falls. It actually falls pretty nicely along, at least along the oops, I have too many selected. I'm going to turn on my shading, wireframe on shaded, so I can see them a little bit better. Maybe I want to drag it down a little bit more and probably drag it in, or actually I should probably rotate it instead of drag it. So I'm going to go to the front view, and I'm going to go to wireframe. I hit 4, and I'm going to rotate this so that it lines up a little bit better. Now, if I look at this, hit 5, yeah, you can see that it pretty well lines up with the, if I hit 4 again, with the grid that's already there for the shark. So maybe I'll put this fin on a layer for a second, so I can just turn it off and go back to my shark. Oh, let me see. Actually, instead of turning it off, I'm going to make it restricted so I can see where it is without turning it off. So I'm going to grab these faces that I want to delete and hit 4 just real quickly to make sure. Yep, those are the right faces. And I'm going to hit delete. Oh, I should also be in rough mode to do this. Okay, so now I have the two pieces, that are, let me move this forward just a little bit. In fact, let me scale it also just a little bit. So when before I target weld, I like to scale one of the objects just a little bit, like the edge around it, so that I can see clearly that there's separation between the two. Because in the past, I thought that they were connected, and I found out that they weren't. So anyways, I have these two objects. I'm going to say mesh combine. And now I'm going to go through and target weld the fin to the shark body, target weld. And this time, instead of center, I'm going to use target. And just go all the way around. And I'm doing every other target because it's sealing the targets on either side of it, or it's sealing the edges around either side as you target weld. You can also use target weld on vertices, but you get it done twice as fast if you use edges. All right, so there's my fin that I didn't even have to build. It's already built for me. And you might want to also go to object mode and then, actually, you know what? I should probably pull this vertex forward a little bit. It's gonna, looks a little strange. And then go back to object mode, and I'm gonna relax some of these again using Sculpt Geometry tool. Maybe I'll make it a little bit bigger. Just so I want to make sure that it doesn't, you don't see the seam, or you just want it to feel organic. This is not a robot shark, but an organic creature. Let's see. All right, so then we'll look at it in smooth mode, and it looks pretty good. So do you guys have any questions about making the other fins, or making an eye, or making a mouth? One last thing, just as a reminder, is delete history. I do see a couple comments. Let's see. Good. You're right back. Okay. Also, I'm going to stop the video here then. Let's see. Record, stop recording.